Hey y'all, Monk Joseph here with the Broken Buddha. I got one last one for you today, and I want to talk about religious training wheels. So, nobody should be offended by this, and this is not a shot at anybody. It's more of an articulation of going from a beginner in a religion to stepping into the next stages. If you've gone through any of the training wheels things or rituals or experiences that I'm about to mention, it doesn't negate anything. And I actually was talking to a friend of mine that I reconnected with yesterday that really helped me shine light on this idea and to help me understand this idea. More or less, when you see my entire religious antithesis series, that's talking about training wheel stuff. And obviously, I'll leave it the way that it is, but that's more or less what you're seeing. And I'd rather balance it as a beginner path or a training wheel path than to see it as an antithesis. The antithesis is just the negating of what the sages started out on that path with. Okay. So I'll be using three religions to make this point: Christianity, Buddhism, or Hinduism, however you look at it, and Sikhism. And I'll start with Christianity first. So in modern day Christianity, you have the two main rituals of asking Yeshua or Jesus into your heart and getting baptized. I see these as training wheels practices. And it's not negating that you're pulling Yeshua into your heart or that you're cleansing yourself of sin or visualizing yourself being cleansed of sin. I see the elevated practices of things like doing guru yoga, where you have Yeshua standing or sitting on your head and Yeshua standing or sitting in your heart at the same time while you walk everywhere and do everything every day and pray and eat. He's always there. And knowing that and actualizing that and using that as a daily meditation is a more advanced level and what I would consider more or less taking the training wheels off. And when you talk about the baptism, there is something that you experience that I refer to as seeing the cosmic waters or experiencing the cosmic waters. And even in the Gnostic Christian scripture, they mention this experience that humans have that means you made it. You've proven your virtue to God. You are clean and clear, ready to go to heaven. And some of the other scriptures of the other religions say you're not allowed to lie, but they say you can pretty much do whatever you want at that point. And I feel like these things got misconstrued into like it's too difficult to do that, so we'll just make these quick versions. And don't get me wrong, no matter who made it up or where the ideas came from, you still have the attention of the sage. You're getting saved, you're getting baptized, you've got Yeshua's attention, and it doesn't matter if he has your attention or not. You're gonna have the experiences that he believes will guide you. Um, Same thing with the other ones. You have the attention of the spirits, and that's all I have to say about the Christianity, the training wheels, the modern day rituals. I see as training wheels the actual experiences. You should take it a step further. Even if you don't agree with me, try going through life with Yeshua on top of your head and in your heart. Everything you do, when you're going to sleep, he's falling asleep on top of your head and in your heart with you. Things like that. So next I'll move on to Sikhism. So you have the 5Ks and understanding the five thieves or Panch Bayar and all these different understandings, but at the end of the day, those are all just starters. You know, this is you initiating into the faith. You should be walking the steps of, once you have your full faith and understanding, you should be walking around and debating Waheguru with all of the other different religions and clergy. And I use that terminology at times at this point after my experience with Sikhism to it's a great way to really get down for the monotheistic teacher that we're all experiencing. But wearing the 5Ks, I see these things as they're training wheels. You need to forget about those things. The reason why, and I'm still, as you can see, I'm still participating in Kesh. I don't have any cut hair, and I don't plan to. I've got freaking, inch long ear hairs by a bushel over here. But to cover the head, there was no rule for that. That is something that is on shaky ground. And carrying your kirpan is more symbolic. You should be ready. There's little kids carrying kirpans. They're not ready to fight somebody to death because somebody's being attacked, but the adults should be realizing that whether they're carrying a kirpan or a gun or whatever, if you're not ready to stand up for somebody who can't stand up for themselves, then you shouldn't even be rapping about those things. And I'm not going to go through all the 5Ks, but you get the idea. Now I'll move on to something like Buddhism. Or I'm going to use Hinduism because I'm going to use Vajrapani for this example. I consider when you're doing mantras, I see if you're doing the Vajrapani mantra with the Vat, Phat or Phet, however you spell it, I consider that training wheels Buddhism or training wheels Hinduism because you're saying something that you believe is going to protect you from evil influence. And when you're working with something a little more frightening like Mahakala or Vajrapani, it's nice to have that little vet on the end or vat on the end, so you know that you're able to dispel the evils and stuff like that. But eventually, you have to let go of that. You have to be able to just do the Om Vajrapani Home and just connect. If you know what you're doing with it, you're doing it, and then let me articulate this differently. When you do Om Vajrapani Hum Fat, the actual prayer is you're connecting Vajra water or Vajra holder, or you can actually just picture Vajrapani. The Hung is grant me spiritual enlightenment because you're also vibrating your pineal gland in the middle of your brain at the same time. And then Vet is protect me from evil. But as you're going through the experiences with Vajrapani, it becomes a little different. When you first start, it's connect Vajrapani, grant me spiritual enlightenment, protect me from evil. And then it's after you have the experience of Vajrapani, it's more like connect Vajrapani has granted me spiritual enlightenment, protect me from evil. And then once you're fully enlightened, it's going to be something more like connect Vajrapani, I am spiritually enlightened, I understand I am protected from evil. But at that point, or before that point, you should be dropping off the vet and the protect me from evil. You have to have faith at that point in the thing that you're practicing and take the training wheels off. So, and then you would just elongate the hung to constantly get that vibration to your pineal gland in the middle of your brain. And even if you're just doing it in a Western sense, to have to clear out stagnations in your brain, in your cranial cavity. So there you have it. That's all I wanted to share on the training wheels aspects. I can't think of anything easily off the top of my head. But all these things, if you're ever nervous about doing a practice, then put on the training wheels. If you're nervous about doing a Mahakala, or I think there's a bunch of vets in the Mahakala one. I can't remember it exactly. I'm not going to go through it because I'm going to stay focused. But make sure the vet's there, or do 5 vets after you're done your mantra work. If you're doing Sikhism's tricky because there's so many different sects and subsects or groups, if you will, and if you ask one, it's okay to take Shahidi Deg to see the gaze of Waheguru, and you talk to another one, and it's like this cookie cutter version of only what Guru Gobind Singh said, and it is what it is. So I mean, but eventually you should branch out. If you really love your God, if you really love Goddess, the universe, all it is, whatever you want to call it, if you really have love for these things, you should be exploring much deeper than surface level with training wheels. And same thing with Yeshua. You know, modern day Christianity says you shouldn't look the other way or go and involve yourself with other religions. But me personally, I took a hard turn as an adult into being more Gnostically focused or Gnostic Christian focused, where it's about gaining knowledge. You gain salvation through gaining knowledge. And you have to be able to look at things. And to be honest, after my time of looking around at all the different religions and rituals and temples and talking to everybody, everybody's looking for the same thing, doing the same thing, and all the scripture is talking about the exact same thing. You see this a lot more. I think the best example of this in Christianity would be Martin Luther, the Protestant Reformer's book, Theologia Deutsch or Theologia Germanica, where it's a discussion he had with somebody who he respected as a religious character, and him interpreting that discussion. So, and I highly encourage anyone to look at that. And you know, if you're going to look at Gnostic scriptures as a Christian, you got to take some of them with a grain of salt, because you got to be able to tell what's what. Which one was written by somebody reaching for power? Which one was written by somebody who was out of their mind? And which one was written by an actual enlightened being who followed the path with their heart until they're now preaching to you through that book from Yeshua, right? So there you have it. I'm going to leave it all at that. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you didn't enjoy it, I at least hope it was informative for you. But thank you for stopping by the Broken Buddha. Peace and blessings.